Welcome back to Cosy Rosie Crochet. I'm excited to have you here with me today as we're making another of my favourite granny squares. This granny square uses the puff stitch cluster trellis stitch. So this creates a lovely open fabric with these beautifully textured puff stitches in here. They are a little bit to get your head around on how to get them all through, let's get your hook through all at the same time, but that's the joy of learning all these new stitches. Now before we get started, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and of course that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of these squares that are being featured in the Hodgepodge blanket crochet along. In the description box you'll find a link so that you can sign up to receive a daily email and make sure you don't miss out on any of these squares. Or you can also find a link that will take you through to all the squares that are being featured, and those links update daily so you can see the latest square as well. If you need to find the written pattern or you'd like to see the if you'd like to see the written pattern, you can find that linked in the description box below too. Let's find out the materials you need to make the puff cluster trellis square. The materials that we're going to need for our puff stitch cluster trellis, wow, that's a word and a half, isn't it? We are going to need our Aran weight or worsted weight acrylic yarn. You can use it in any material, but I'm going to be using 100% acrylic with my PaintBox Yarns Simply Aran. And in this square, I'm going to be using shade number 245. This is a 4-weight yarn, and I'm using the corresponding hook size, which is a 5mm. So this is going to obviously make us an 8-inch square. And you're only going to need, again, about 55 to 60 meters of this yarn to complete this square. You're also going to need a darning needle and a pair of scissors, but you can make it in multiple colours if you want to. Again, I'd recommend changing colours every 2 rows if you want to do it in more than one colour. So let's gather those materials and we can get started. So this square is worked in rows. So once again, we're going to be starting by making a chain to work into. We're going to make our slip knot and place that on our hook. And for our 8-inch square, we're going to need a chain of 29. So we just yarn over and pull our hook through to create our chain, and we're going to do a chain of 29 in total. So make your chain and I'll see you in a moment. So once we have our chain of 29, we're going to work our first stitch, which is going to be a single crochet into the 5th chain from hook. So those skipped chains are going to count towards a chain 3 space. Don't just worry about that yet. We're going to come back to that. So first of all, we're going to do a US single crochet, which is the same as a UK double crochet in that 5th chain from hook. So remembering this loop doesn't count. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4. There's number 5. So we're just going to insert our hook under that top loop of that 1st or that 5th chain from a hook. Bring the yarn through, yarn over, and pull through those 2 loops. So it creates a nice little space in here, and that counts as a chain 3 space. We're then going to work a chain of 3, so chain 1, 2, and 3, and we're going to skip the next 2 chains. And we repeat from the chain 3 all the way across. So we chain 3, skip 1, skip 2, and then single crochet in the next. Chain 3, 1, 2, and 3, skip 2, and single crochet in the next. We're going to repeat that all the way to the end, and you should end with your single crochet in the last chain. So we're doing a chain of 3, 1, 2, and 3, skip 2, and then single crochet into next. So continue that to the end of this row and I'll meet you ready for row 2. So I'm just skipping my last 2 chains and working my last single crochet for the end of row 1. And at the end of row 1, you should have 9 single crochets and 9 chain 3 spaces, remembering that this one counts as a chain 3 space as well. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So going into row 2, we're going to start with a chain of 3, and we are then going to work 1 single crochet into the next chain 3 space. So we just insert our hook into that big space there and work a single crochet, and then we chain 3, and then into this next chain 3 space we're going to work our puff stitch. So for our puff stitch we're going to yarn over the hook, insert the hook into that next chain 3 space, yarn over, bring our loop up, yarn over, reinsert the hook into the same space, bring our loop up, and we do that for a 3rd time. So yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, bring our loop up. Now you notice that I'm pulling a little bit as I bring my loop up, because that's going to help create the space we need to do this next part, because we're going to yarn over and pull through all these loops on our hook. So we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 loops on our hook. So we're going to yarn over and by magic not be able to pull through. Oh, there we go, pull through all the loops on our hook. Should we undo that one and try it again? Because I'm not even confident about what I just did. Let's try that again. So we're going to yarn over the hook, insert the hook into that next chain 3 space, yarn over, bring our loop up, make sure you've got a little bit of space there, pop your finger on top to keep that space, yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, bring your next loop up, yarn over for a 3rd time, bring the loop up. You should have 7 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull down, and you should be able to pull through all those 7 loops on your hook. We're then going to do a chain of 3, 1, 2 and 3. So this is the pattern that we're going to create all the way along. So we do our single crochet into the next chain 3 space, a chain of 3, followed by a puff stitch in the next. So we yarn over, insert the hook, yarn over, bring the loop up, yarn over the hook, insert the hook into the chain 3 space, yarn over, bring another loop up, yarn over the hook, insert the hook, yarn over, bring it up, and we should have 7 loops on our hook. We're going to yarn over, pinch at the bottom, and that should allow our hook to come through. If you have to go through each individual one, you can do. Oops, don't forget that last loop, Fiona. And that creates the puff stitch, and then we're going to chain 3 again. So we're going to repeat that all the way across. So a single crochet, chain 3, followed by the puff stitch. Now puff stitches are notoriously difficult because you are bringing your hook all the way through in one go. But as I've said, if you can't quite get it all the way through, just take your time and go through each of the loops as you need to. So let's just do the final puff stitch together. You'll notice in that last one I went quite quickly, and that tends to make my loops more easy to move through. So I'm going to yarn over, insert, bring a loop up, and all the while I'm using my other finger to kind of hold the loops in place so they don't get too small. So at the end of row 2 you should have 9 chain 3 spaces, 4 puff stitches, and then you've got your single crochets in between. So let's do row 3. We start with a chain of 3 to turn our work, and then we're going to single crochet into this first chain 3 space. We chain 3 again, and then we're going to single crochet into the next chain 3 space. We're going to repeat this pattern all the way across of a chain of 3 and a single crochet into that next chain space all the way across to the end. So keep working across and I'll meet you at the end of row 3. So at the end of row 3 we're going to be working our final single crochet into that last chain 3 space, and it's a nice quick row, that one. We're just recreating all those chain 3 spaces. So we should still have 9 chain 3 spaces at the end. So for row 4, we're going to do our chain of 3. And this time we're going to work our puff stitch into that first chain 3 space. So we yarn over, insert, bring a loop up 3 times, and then yarn over and pull through all 7 loops on your hook, chain 3, and then this time we single crochet in the next. So we're going to chain 3, work our puff stitch into that next chain 3 space, pull through all 7 loops and chain 3. So continue to repeat that all the way across, and I'll meet you in our last chain 3 space. So we're ending this row by working a puff stitch into that last chain 3 space. And we're ready to work our chain 3 to turn. So for row 5, we repeat row 3 that we worked earlier, which is working our chain of 3 and then single crochet into the chain 3 space, chain 3, and single crochet into the next chain 3 space. So repeat that across, and then I'm going to set you up to work the rest of your repeats to complete your square. So I've just worked my last single crochet into the last chain 3 space, and that is the stitch repeat that we're going to have. We're going to repeat row 2 to 5 until we have a total row count of 19. So it's quite easy to count these rows. We have row 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So every other row has the puff stitches, and the puff stitches move along. So I'll get you started in row 2. Don't forget that you can just skip back using the chapters at the bottom of the description box to go back to follow row 2 again. So row 2 begins with a chain of 3, and then we single crochet. You see how we've got the puff stitch there? We're going to single crochet above, do our chain of 3, and then we work our puff stitch above the single crochet. So one final time, that puff stitch we yarn over, bring up a loop 3 times. So we have 7 loops on our hook, pull through all 7 loops, and then we work our chain 3. We've got a puff stitch there, so we're going to single crochet in the next one, chain 3, then we're ready to puff stitch again over the top of that single crochet. Pull through all 7 loops. I don't want to do that again. Come back. There we go. There's that last loop, and we chain 3. So continue to repeat those rows until you have a total of 19 rows, and then I'll be back with you to work our edging. So I've just worked my last single crochet in that last chain space, and that's our square complete, except of course we need to add a nice little edging. So we're going to chain 1, and like we've done with our previous squares, we're going to start by working down the end of our rows. So we're going to work first of all in that space underneath that post of the last single crochet that we worked, and then we're going to work into each end of the row and each of those chain 3 spaces all the way down. Now at the end of this, you'll probably have a stitch count of 26, so that's what the number that we're aiming for. But continue working down, placing 1 single crochet in the end of each row and in those larger chain spaces as well. There we are, it's a nice straight edge. And then in that corner space where we have that tail from our slip knot, we're going to work 1 single crochet, a chain 1 and a single crochet. We're then going to work along the bottom of these, along the bottom of our chain, and we're going to work 2 single crochets into these chain spaces. You can work around them if you wanted to. Move that tail out of the way and weave that in a little bit as we go. So 2 single crochets into those chain spaces, and then 1 single crochet into the bottom of that single crochet from the first round. So 2 into that larger space, and then 1 into the bottom of that stitch. So 1 and 2 and 1 in the bottom. So work around along the other end of the chain, and I'll meet you in the corner. I just worked my last single crochet into the bottom of that stitch. We're ready to work in the base of that first chain that we skipped all the way back at the beginning of this pattern. So we're going to work our corner into the base of that, which is of course a single crochet, chain 1 and a single crochet. And then we're ready to work back along the other edge. We're going to do the same as we did on the other side. So we work around that chain 3 and then into the end of the row, and we just repeat that the whole way up the side. When we come to these puff stitches on the edges, I'm just going to insert my hook through the back of it and pick up 2 loops of that stitch, and then I'm going to skip that and work, oh no, so there is a space there, and just work in between. So continue all the way up, working into those puff stitches as required. I'll do another one here with you. So I'm just going to insert to the back, pick up 2 loops of the puff stitch and work my single crochet, and then work into that space. And that'll give us a nice straight edge without affecting those puff stitches too much as well. So keep working across. I'll meet you in the next corner, ready to work across the top of the last row. I'm just placing my last single crochet. There's that row all done, and I'm just going to work into that top of the chain 3 here to work our corner, which is a single crochet, chain 1 and another single crochet. So working across the top of our last row, we're going to single crochet into each of the top of the stitches, and then into these chain spaces we're just going to work 2 single crochets. So 1 into the top of the stitch like we did on the bottom, and then 2 into the chain spaces. So work along and I'll meet you for our final corner. So I've worked 2 single crochets into that last chain 2 space. Just going to insert my hook into one of these chains of that last chain 3 and work our corner. So a single crochet, chain 1, single crochet, and then we can slip stitch to the first, to that first single crochet that we made, and we're ready to fasten off. So I've made a little chain 1 to make a knot, and then I'm fastening off with a nice long tail so I can weave that end in. And that's the puff cluster trellis square complete. I really hope that you've enjoyed learning how to do these puff stitches and creating this wonderful stretchy trellis stitch. I'm a huge fan of this one. As always, I do like these open stitches. And anything that looks like a trellis, it looks more complicated than it is. But I really hope that you've enjoyed it. Of course, as always, I would love for you to share your square with me. Head on over to Instagram or Facebook. You can use the hashtag Hodgepodge Blanket Cal, C-A-L at the end, or tag me using @CozyRosieUK. And of course, I'll be back with you tomorrow with another crochet granny square pattern for you to stitch up as part of the Hodgepodge Blanket Crochet Along.